Good day to you. How do you make money on the internet and specifically through social media? And what are the laws governing how you can use content on social media? Well, that's the subject of our instructor video lecture today. It's on the economic and legal structures of social media and the internet. And we know that one thing that the internet and social media has done for us is to decrease the costs of production, storage, and dissemination of information. It's so easy now to save something. You don't even know where you're saving it, but it's easy to save it there because you put it in a cloud, or you put it in a micro memory chip on your phone, or you keep it in a flash drive on your keyring. And then getting it out there is as easy as ABC. Upload it, send it out as a link, copy it, send it as an attachment. Very, very easy to store, disseminate, and produce things compared to content that was produced in the past for television, radio, etc. In TV, for example, you want to produce a newscast, you're going to be spending all day in the field. Then you have to bring what you gather up footage-wise, edit it. Then it gets sent over to the anchor who reads an introduction to it, followed by the reporter. It's a big, long, massive process, and it's very, very expensive. Social media has totally changed that around. The book mentions Moore's Law. It has to do with the doubling of computer speed every single year. It's kind of interesting from an exponential point of view. It says that everything keeps getting faster, not by an incremental pace, by doubling itself every single year. Next up in this chapter is the idea of blurred rights of ownership. And what this is really speaking to is the traditional laws that have governed the use of content in media, and by that I mean legacy media, TV, radio, newspapers, magazines, even film. The traditional laws are somewhat murky when it comes to social media, and there's still a lot of court cases to be played out to see exactly what those court cases are ruling when it comes to how social media can be used legally. There's the concept of enclosure, where you try to block off the use of other people, the use of a particular slogan or phrase or content by other people. You say it's copyright protected, or you say that it's trademarked. Both of which you have to file with the U.S. government to ensure. So enclosure is one way to try and guard against blurred rights of ownership. And then you have this whole idea of the non-rival use of media content, non-rival. And that's where you're looking at whether the use of it increases or decreases value. And in a non-rival use, you're looking for the use of that content to decrease its value. Let's say that you have a very popular recipe that you put online, and the more people who start talking about it drives other people to the website where you have to purchase the recipe. That would be a non-rival use. However, if people are able to steal that recipe and pass it around, then you have what would be called a rival use. Playing into this blurred line of ownership in social media content is the idea that social media have grown up as a public good. We consider it to be something that should be free and easy to get to, and generally is supposed to be helping everybody. So the public good gets in the way of trying to protect content for being under the copyright licensing of one particular person when it's supposed to be available for everybody. Like WebMD. I mean, how many people in this class have had an affliction and you don't know what it is, and rather than schedule an appointment with a doctor, you go look it up, okay? And then you can go look at blogs on social media, and then you can see what other people tweet about it and join user groups, etc. You learn a lot about it yourself. Should that be for the public good, or should you have to pay for it by virtue of a doctor? It's one of the philosophical questions of our time. Then there's something called net neutrality. Net neutrality is a concept that we've kind of discussed before. It has to do with, does everybody have the same rights, freedoms, and equality for access to the internet? Can they get on the internet as if they're living in a city, as well as somebody who's living on a farm, as well as somebody who's living in a suburb? And when they get on, is the speed as fast? And are they charged as much? These are things that have to do with equality, or what is known as net neutrality. Next up in the book is copyright use. When you go to copyright a document in legacy media, the law says that you have 50 years after the death of the author. Unless it's a corporate author, then you have 75 years after that death to protect that copyright. And that means you can't use somebody's content. If they publish an article and they sign their name on it on the web, you theoretically cannot be using that. But really what the courts take a look at is whether you're making money off it without permission. because there is a provision called the fair use provision. And it's designed for people like me, academics and teachers, to be able to use products in a way to teach people. So I can grab a 9-second clip of a film and I can show it to my class. I can take a news tweet from Fox News online on Twitter, and I can present it in my class, even though it may be exclusive information. That allows the learning process to take place, but fair use does describe some restrictions on how much you can use before you have to get copyright permission. Next up is the idea of networked consumers. Networked consumers are people who are together through social media. One of the methods that gets people together is crowdfunding. That's where people are asked to contribute. Remember when Kanye West said that he was broke and he went on a TV talk show and also, I believe, tweeted and said that he was looking for, I believe it was $50 million. I can't remember exactly. And people contributed. That's crowdfunding, and social media gives you access to that, especially if you're a charismatic celebrity. Then there's the idea of micropayments, and this is where you get people to contribute individual amounts. That's what the Bernie Sanders campaign did. Their average amount of money that was contributed, mainly through social media mechanisms, was $35 per person. That's a micropayment. Next up is the concept of platforms. When we're looking at platforms, we're looking at what the cost is to move from one platform to another, to move from Twitter to Facebook, Facebook to Pinterest, Pinterest to PayPal, PayPal to eBay, all the other platforms that are out there that allow people to come together and make purchases. And there's one concept that's called the direct network effects. And that's where current users get additional value when other people join. So when other people join and they contribute money, for example, like the NRA is very active, the National Rifle Association, very active on Twitter, etc. When other people join, it raises awareness and convinces even more people to join the NRA and helps raise their membership, which gives them more money to lobby in Washington for gun rights. It's an example of direct network effects. And then you have cross-side network effects. And cross-side network effects is where you have the effects of additional users having an effect on an existing segment of users. Existing segment of users. The book uses the example of Facebook. You have all these people who are friends and who are participating, and when other people start to join Facebook, they get driven to the advertisements that are sponsored links on Facebook. And so it's an effect of Facebook friends on a completely different segment, which would be the advertisers. All right, now we're going to talk about the shifts in economic practice and production. And again, this part of the chapter, like the last one, is talking about how some fundamental changes in society are taking place with the development of products that are distributed on social media. And one of the major impacts is user innovation. That means people, everyday people, are able to tweet back and email back and post Instagram photos and Facebook replies and comments to major money-making organizations. They could be media organizations, or they could be companies like McDonald's, and they could make suggestions that, why don't you put out a breakfast menu during the evening? I wouldn't be surprised if that was generated for McDonald's, which has become a very successful product for them last year, breakfast all day long. That's just something that gets often suggested by the consumers themselves. And so this is a fundamental change which social media does for it. It gives us access where we wouldn't otherwise have access into the upper echelons of organizational decision making. Within that, we have lead users. These are people who we talked about before. They're gatekeepers. They have a way of having influence over others so that people see what they're using. They're also interested. You're following tweets about the Olympics right now? Okay, I'm going to try that too. It looks fun. I respect you. That's the way that lead users go. And then we have open innovation. Open innovation is a lot of times where companies will just say, hey, have at it. Come improve our product. That's what happens with Linux, I believe, a software operating system. I'm not a computer programmer, but it's open source, so anybody can contribute to it. Same with Wikipedia. Anybody can contribute to it to make it better. It's got open innovation. And actually, Apple is said to actually encourage people to try and hack their software, the average everyday citizens, and then they learn from that. And it's a form of open innovation. The chapter finishes roughly with the idea of different business models for making money. The fifth one is very messily presented. I'm not even going to try and cover that. But the first one is government support. You find that in a lot of countries, government providing grants, providing loans, providing direct funding to develop social media. That certainly is what goes on in China, so that they don't have to rely so much on advertising or on Western sources of social media. The second business model is the freemium. This is where you offer people products for free, or free shipping, or free something, and it hooks them. They think that they're going to get something free, and they usually find out that there are bigger charges later on. My daughter went to purchase an airline ticket. Supposedly it's free because it has she used her airline miles, but it's it's there are other charges that are involved. So freemiums are usually an incentive-based thing with an additional cost that the consumer doesn't realize. Or at least is going to have to pay, even though thinking that the product is free. Then we have commercial sponsorship as the fourth business model. Commercial sponsorship is where you get somebody to advertise on your webpage. If you started a YouTube channel like Jenna Marbles, you could have a really, really big following, and then you can start having people pay to click through to your content, and YouTube will collect the money and it will pay you a dividend if you get enough people to watch your channel. It's a kind of sponsorship. And then finally we have access charges. This is what you charge to gain access. You want to get on social media, but you don't want to pay a cable bill? Looks like you've got to go with Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile. You're getting access through their mechanisms, and they're going to charge you for that. It's almost like getting access to electricity. It's almost like treating social media as a utility, like gasoline, like your gas company, natural gas company, or electricity, etc. All right, so this will wrap up our almost last chapter on economic and legal structures. Have a great day.